Okay. Welcome again, everybody. This is the live exploration for OpenAI, some new features. I try to do this every Friday. Sometimes I get to do it, sometimes I don't. So my name is Doug Fink. I'm a Microsoft MVP, and I've been looking into AI for a few years, and I'm also the author of the PowerShell AI module that lets you, it integrates ChatGPT, and you can have ChatGPT at your fingertips, both in the console and in your scripts and more. And but today I'm going to focus on doing stuff on GPT-4 in the web browser. Um, and before we kick off with doing that, I just wanted to do a little bit of housekeeping. So at the end of the month, I'm going to also talk about Azure OpenAI service and some of the features around that for the UK virtual meetup. We're going to do a lunch and learn. So if you got here through the RSVP on the meetup, on my meetup page, you can find that and sign up if you want to check that out. I believe that's going to be recorded. I'm not going to be hosting. I'll just be presenting. And also I do a monthly, at least monthly PowerShell meetup. And next month, On will be joining us. She has done some really cool things with time series forecasting and impact estimation using my PowerShell Excel module. And I'm very excited to go check that out. But then again, I like PowerShell and I love Excel, so I'm a little biased. So without further ado, let's. Oh yeah, one more thing. If you want, I'll try and get the wrong details here, but I'll post. Let's try this again. Oops. I'm going to post my YouTube channel. I will be posting today's meeting there. And I also post many others. Well, we'll do that here. I will post that at the end. So remind me if I don't do that. And if you get on there, click the subscription and notifications, you'll know when I post stuff about PowerShell, PowerShell AI, meetups, these live demos I do, and much more. So let's kick off with some chat open API. So I paid the $20 per month subscription, and I get access to ChatGPT Plus. It gives me a whole bunch of if you pay the $20, you get a whole bunch of things, like you don't get throttled as much. Yesterday they had a major outage, so hopefully that won't affect us today. I'm not sure if they were upgrading things that might affect the demo as well. This again is a improvised live process. So maybe things will go off the rails and we'll see if we can get things back on the rails. But so the ChatGPT Plus, I think, is great for lots of different reasons. When I do a drop down on my GPT-4, I don't believe the free version gives you access to the GPT-4, only 3.5. But I also have access to searching with Bing, that's integrated with GPT, advanced data analysis, formerly known as the code interpreter, the plugin architecture, which allows me to create plugins, as well as look at the hundreds and hundreds of plugins that companies have built that they plug right into GPT and do some really cool stuff. And of course, the new release on DALL-E 3, which we won't be looking at for doing the GPT vision stuff. That's for text to image, the DALL-E 3. So let's see. So I'm ready to go. And what I'm going to do is bring up Visual Studio Code. So one of the cool things that they're talking about, and I've uncovered, and we'll get to that later, is you can take images and you can paste them into GPT and you can do some interesting pieces. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take and copy. I wrote this little program, little PowerShell greet function, takes a param, writes hello name based on the param that gets passed in. And this is an image. So I'm just going to copy this PNG, and I'm going to come over here and make sure I have the default set on. Yep. So notice here down when I have default, I have a little picture icon, right? And I can either attach an image or paste an image. If I'm in the advanced data plugin, I can also attach files and do stuff like that. I've done demos on that. If you check out the playlist, you can check out where I've done work with the advanced data analysis and the code interpreter. But today we're going to focus on doing pictures. So I can either upload a picture or I can actually paste it in. And there I just pasted that little snapshot of the PowerShell. And I'm just going to press enter. And GPT-4 is getting to a point where it's reasoning. So now it just actually took apart that picture, right? And it's going to start explaining it to me. So it's knows it's called invoke-greet. And when it called, it takes a parameter and then prints out a greeting using write host. So for example, this function with the argument John, it would print hello, would you like assistance or have any questions about it? So that quickly took an image of a program, and this could have been any language, C#, Go, Rust, etc. And it will analyze it and figure out things. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, please, because I always like to be polite to GPT. It seems to respond better when I am polite. Please add a timestamp to print out, to print. You can see I'm really good at grammar. And let me see the code. So let's start there. Nice minimal effort prompt. And it already understands what I want it to do. And I think that's pretty cool, right? So it gives me an updated version of the invoke greet, and it plugs in the hello current timestamp with the name and even formats the time for me. I can copy that code. Let's see if I can bring up a, oh, we do have it. So let's do this over here. And I can paste that code in to a terminal. So far looks good. Let's see if it actually works. Oops, let's not do that. Let's try it again. Paste. And get this right. And I'll just copy this and paste it. Invoke greet. And sure enough, I get a timestamp. And we'll pass a name in, and everything still works. So from a snapshot, now I could have been out walking around. Why I'd see PowerShell code somewhere where I'm walking on the street, I have no idea. But I can take a picture of something, upload it to ChatGPT, and if it's a piece of code, it'll diagnose it, decipher it, and then I can ask it to do things. And yes, delete the, it's super quick parsing analysis. It's pretty insane. So that's, I started playing with this a week or so ago, and pretty outrageously cool stuff. So let's go on and do something else. Let's grab, what do you want to do? Oh, this is kind of cool, I think. So I created, of course, it has to always be an Excel demo when I'm doing things. So I created a chart. Let's see if I can. I just created a PowerShell Excel file. Let's see, what did I call? I called it Excel chart. Nope. Yep. Bring up Excel. So I just dumped in some data into Excel, and I then created this chart, and then I took a snapshot of that. Chrissy says absolutely insane stuff. It created a VS Code theme for me based off of a web page. Oh, nice. So you pasted in the web page and then asked it to do a scheme. That's really cool. A theme for VS Code. Yeah, and this is just, this is just one of the cool things is one of the reasons I do this is I'm experimenting, driving, understanding, and getting an intuition about what GPT can do, and more people, just it's open to your imagination, and you really got to let yourself go, because if you're used to doing search engine searches, right? We got this little text box. We do search engine searches. We scroll through a bunch of stuff, ads, and then we get to our links, and then we go from there. This is really, you're like, wow, you try to answer questions or you try to figure things out. And then it's like, well, why don't I just type that into ChatGPT and see what happens? And you got to kind of let yourself go and start to figure that out and exercise that muscle. So Steve, you use the PowerShell AI manager pretty much every day. Awesome. Yep. There's not a day that goes by that I don't talk to ChatGPT. What else we got going here? The realm of imagination is infinite with AI. Absolutely. The vision worked wonderfully, but data analytics, even though I could upload the picture, did a terrible job for this particular task. Other tasks are actually data analytics are amazing. Good point, Chrissy. Also, I find that when I was doing the data analytics, if I did upload a picture, sometimes I would have to nudge it, and maybe you've done it too, and say, tell it to do an OCR so I can grab the information better. The cool thing about the data analytics, I think, is that it's got a Python interpreter behind it. So if you know a little bit of Python and how some of that works, you can begin to tell it like almost even, or prompt it to load different libraries to do different kinds of things with vision. So yeah, it's you got to go in a couple of different directions out of the box. It can be a little wonky, but as I always say, we're only in October, and then next month, after we do some things, it will only be in November. Cool. Glad that, yeah, give that a try. I'd love to get feedback on that. Yeah, this thing it's again, you got to keep, let your imagination go and go instead of going, like, you never would think that put this into a Bing or a Google search. It's a completely different thing. So I'm going to grab this. So I made this chart in Excel. Now this could be something that somebody sent me in an email, right? And they'd go, hey, how would you deal with this? Or take a look at this stuff. So I'm going to just do a new chat here. I'm going to paste that image in, press enter, and let's see what it's almost kind of like, I feel lucky today. Press enter, and all right off the bat, it just analyzed it, knows that it's dealing with units and price across a bunch of different states. Now here I found at times it doesn't always get it correct. So it's saying that Texas and Kansas have highest price. Texas and Kansas has the highest price. That looks pretty accurate, right? So it figured out from the legend, price is orange, and it looked at it and said, hey, I've got, yep, good stuff. So I can actually begin to ask this to do further analysis. And as you can see at the bottom, it's asking me, would you like to do further analysis? The other thing I like to say about ChatGPT is that it's like a PhD intern. And not only is it a PhD intern now, it can actually see things. It can actually do vision in terms of pictures and snapshots and so on. But it also knows how to code, right? And it knows how to code in many different programming languages. And you don't have to only ask this in English because it works in many different spoken languages. So again, it's all about imagination. Now, this is really cool. So I like PowerShell. And I'm going to not just take a look and have it do analysis, but what I wanted to do is I'm going to say, please create a PowerShell. And I'm going to leave this misspellings PowerShell script to represent. I like leaving in the misspellings because sometimes it comes back and tells me I didn't spell something correctly. There you go. It already corrected my spelling, did the capitalization. Which is pretty cool. And it's saying it's going to represent it in a hash table for each state with corresponding units, price, and values. And off it goes. Now, I'm completely blown away that this thing can do that. Now, the numbers, I haven't played with this a lot because I wanted to wait to do a live presentation. And if I go off the rails, see if I can get back on the rails is as exciting as getting the right answer. So sometimes it didn't get the units right. So Texas, 1,000. Yeah. So you can see it's a little off. So maybe it's rounding up. It can't really tell the difference between 800 and 1,000, or doesn't know that it's, 900, but it gets me to a certain point. And then I can actually take this, copy it, drop it down into an editor, and I'm off to the races, and I can start tweaking the data any way I want. Again, AI GPT at this point, maybe it doesn't get you 100%. You can't say, hey, go grab the Uber, routing code and then convert it all to my favorite language and give me, now I have a routing system that's ready to go. You can't really do that. And it doesn't always get you 100%, but let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater. If it gets you 80%, 70%, I don't have to sit here and type this and make my own mistakes. I'm ramped up and cooking. So what do we got? Doug, you always use it as it was an intern. Now it's getting more intelligent, and you're saying it's a PhD. Absolutely. And by next month, I have no idea what I might be making the analogy to. It's evolving. Yeah, it's pretty weird. We're going to anthropomorphize, if I say that, we're anthropomorphize the GPT. Is it alive? The Google engineer that said it was sentient not too long ago got fired. I have no idea. I look at this thing and I think it's thinking. Sometimes I think it's reading my mind. It's crazy. Chrissy, my wife keeps track of our cat's asthma attacks in iPhone notes. Her data was casual. Some days gave him meds once, sometimes nothing, and GPT parsed it so well that the data was so dirty. Interesting. She asked me to chart it for years, and it was insanely easy to get insights from GPT. It made me some charts and analyzed the progress of his. That's great. That's perfect. Perfect imagined use of this system. I can say this: when I first started, ChatGPT on the web came out last November, so it's a year old. Um, my daughter was it's Memorex. My daughter was pregnant with her first child, my first grandchild, and I was asking GPT about sizes of the fetus, and it would come back, and every week I could ask it, tell the original when she conceived. It would give me the size of the baby at that time and give me like, okay, it's the size of of a toy this size. It's the size of a pumpkin at this point. And then I use it for many other things. So yeah, go wild with this. It's quite capable. So if I copy this code and let's see if I paste it away here. So there you go. So it worked. And what's really cool is I can come back here and say, now I know PowerShell, do it as a custom object. Now, so, all the hype that goes on about GPT, like, oh, it's going to take all of our jobs, it's going to put everybody out of business. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of disruption. And I think that's an understatement. But at the same time, what I'm doing here, even asking for a custom object, and then you can see it figures out it's PS custom object, which is crazy cool. Somebody who's doesn't like, I wouldn't be able to do this in Go or Rust because I'm not as fluent in those languages. So somebody who's a beginner or intermediate that doesn't know enough about the domain that they're in won't be able to nudge and prompt GPT in a way that's super meaningful, but it can kick them off into a great space. And if you're good in that domain, this is more than a capable PhD intern. So we get the PS custom objects and we'll get a different view. Let's see, was it done? Looks good. Make sure to replace the example with the actual data from your chart. Running the script will display. So it already knows that it couldn't get the chart data correct, which is cool. So I'll paste this in. And now we have a nice looking table that PowerShell folks are familiar with, makes it a little bit easier to work with, not just a hash table. And if I went back and told it knew it was a hash table, I could ask it to use things like get enumerator, and it would work the same. And I probably wouldn't even need to say get enumerator. If I said pick out the details about X, Y, and Z, it would use the proper ways to do it. I see that all the time. So there's some couple of cool examples, right? So I can take code, paste it in. I can take a chart, and I can do analysis on the chart. If I was working in Python, I could do some really cool things with this. I can have it transform into Seaborn or Matplotlib to do other types of stuff. I can ask it to add data, all kinds of different things, right? So if I got this stuff, I could actually sit here and say, I want units, price, state, and maybe zip code. I wouldn't be surprised if we get the proper zip code for the general piece of the state. Can you ask it to make output to a grid view? For sure I can. In fact, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to copy almost your exact question. And let's see what it does. And Alberto, my brick and mortar bank only wanted to produce statements in some non-standard PDF, asked GPT for help. And within minutes, I had a Python script converted to OCR to say, how sweet is that? There you go. That is excellent. So yeah, great. There's a real-time use. Hey, I don't want to sit here and take these statements from different, places and let ChatGPT do it. Perfect. Exactly. It's all about imagination. Whatever you can imagine is possible. And the cool part is, notice how, I mean, we've been talking, I did a bunch of intro stuff, but maybe we've been working on this maybe 5-10 minutes. You can iterate and brainstorm in this way. It's very low overhead cognitively once you start getting the feel for prompt engineering. Um, so it's not very taxing. And actually, in my opinion, it gets to be a lot of fun. So I don't know if that's what you wanted, Alberto, but yep, it actually redid it and then it used out grid view, right? I'll ask GPT, let's see, let me just see if this works. Take out the extra pipe. And I think it should pop up. Yep, I got a grid view. Guess what would happen if I asked it to export to Excel? I don't even have to tell it about the third party product, and it'll pick my module and show you how to install it, and it will actually then take this and then say export Excel. So it's really cool. So Stephen, I asked ChatGPT to collapse all of the different variables into one. There you go. Right. So when you so type of one if folks mostly use ChatGPT Web, type of two if you use GitHub Copilot, or three if you don't use any of the above. See who if people have all right, people find both. One. So we got ChatGPT Web. Awesome. Both. Cool. Mr. Mendoza's in the house. Which one is the API? Sure, if you use something like my PowerShell module, you can type in a 4. So we'll go with. So most people use ChatGPT Web. So just as a note, if you're using ChatGPT Web, which is great, 1, 2 plus 4. Let's see, that's 6, 7. Awesome, that's a good number. Lucky number 7. If you do use ChatGPT Web, if you don't pay for it, you get the free version. And the only thing I'd caution there is that using the free version, while it's a less capable model than GPT-4 compared to 3.5, which is the free. And making decisions like, oh, this thing doesn't work, or it takes a lot more effort, or I can't get the results I want, you'd be surprised how much more capable GPT-4 is, which is why I recommend paying the $20. In addition, Copilot in GitHub, GitHub Copilot for Visual Studio Code is amazing. And if you can get access to GitHub Copilot X, which is the next level. And they've done a lot of special sauce in that beyond the GPT-4 in Chat GPT Web. It's a lot of stuff to say. And you can do really amazing things. So like as Stephen was saying, like sitting there in actual code, it can actually show you a diff between what you're saying. Let me select all these variables and then prompt it to say, hey, collapse it. It can actually give you a diff between what you have and what it wants to do. And then you can make decisions on accepting or declining or changing your actual prompt. Awesome. Let's play a little more if people are up for some more things. So we got the Greet, we got the Excel. This one's kind of cool. Not kind of cool. It's super cool, I think. So let's do I have it here? Nope. Let's see if I can get back to where I was. So I know I'm guessing we're all mostly software folks on here, not really, I'm not a mathematics major capable person. So, but what's really cool is if I come here, let me see if I can get this right, find it again. Now I'm not gonna, I found it. I find this thing all the time. And then today, there we go. So I'm just gonna use Word. So this is right, typical notation, right? I'm going to start my Snagit. So bear with me. So a lot of people do, research and they work with mathematics and they learn how to use things like Python. So they take this mathematics equation, and I will do a new chat and I will paste that in and I'll press enter. There we go. Let's get it right. And let's see what, so this is the formula for the area of a circle, right? So right off the, so it can, and it's even using LaTeX right here. I can tell from the way it looks, uh, that you can, if you wanted, you can actually ask GPT to make a LaTeX version of this. It'll grab that in the proper coding, and then you can paste it as a LaTeX file into code or wherever and have it render so that other mathematicians who are used to this, familiar with this process, and that view, it'll work fine. And it gives a little more explanation about what the radius is. I can again ask it to convert this into PowerShell. Let's make it a little more challenging. We'll just grab another equation. I don't want to go too crazy. We could go for a Pythagorean theorem, but that's not, let's go with, yeah, let's see how it handles this. So the only thing I understand is the summation button, the summation piece, because I use that all the time in Excel. So let's paste this image in and we'll press enter. Now I can verify whatever it's going to tell me. Oh, it's a Fourier series. Okay, cool. I understand Fourier transforms. And off it goes. Now, what's really cool is I could take this and copy and paste it and then go into the data analytics where I have a Python interpreter and I can begin to do all kinds of different things. Or I can take it, I haven't tried this yet. Pretty much, I'm fairly confident I could take this, go to Visual Studio Code, create a new file, set the language to Python, paste this as a comment, and then work with it. And that would become like a prompt for Copilot. And then I could actually begin to ask it to create functions and whatnot and be off to the races. So you can begin to see, we're not just talking about graphs. We're not just talking about code. We're talking about mathematical symbols and formulas. I've seen some of the suggestions or demos. People have actually gone out. I live in New York City. So, and I have been looking for really, back in the bunch of years ago, you could walk on a street where people park and you could look up at all the different signs that says, no parking on Mondays, Wednesdays, Fridays between 9 and 5, no parking on, Tuesdays and Thursdays from 11 p.m. to 4 a.m. There's consulate parking. There's this thing, one way. And people have actually gone up to where there's groups of signs like that, take a picture, pass it up to street cleaning as well. Yep, alternate side parking. And these are like, 10 signs on one pole that describe what you can and cannot do. You can take a snapshot of that with your camera, upload it, and then ask GPT to figure it out. And it can begin to figure these things out. You can actually take pictures of a basket of fruit with all different kinds of fruit, for example. And you can say, name the different fruits that are in there or explain to me what's in it. It'll go and tell you what's fruit, what's not. I haven't seen anybody do that typical other thing where they have what is it, labradoodles or those cute little puffy little dogs, and that you could take like a chocolate chip cookie that has 3 different chocolate chips where the eyes and the nose are. And that was the machine learning days when you could compare an actual picture of a dog to a chocolate chip cookie to see if it knows the difference. And GPT does that with one lobe tied behind its back. So that's math, that's charts. Does it know that a tomato is a fruit? Is a tomato a fruit? I'll make that for my next. I'm sure it's going to get the answer correctly here. Botanically speaking, a tomato is a fruit. It's a mature ovary of a flower, typically containing seeds. Well, there you go. That's a little more culinary information than I need to know. But yeah, what? Classifications led some confusion and even a famous Supreme Court case in 1893. See this? Now, I can't get that with a Google search. And that's the other thing that's really amazing to me about Copilot X is that nice, we're chomping on mature ovaries. Yeah, it's kind of interesting. Do you think if I showed it pics of my wife's family and mine, could it say with certainty what features my daughter has from each side of the family? That's a great use case. I would suggest go ahead and do it. I know that they have put up pictures that are similar, dissimilar pictures, and asked GPT to figure out these very minute differences between pictures. I think that'd be really cool to do and easy. Now, be careful, because when you're using ChatGPT, um, this version is only up on the web. So your information, while they say they don't use it to train anything else, I'm always cautious before I start putting this kind of information on the internet. Um, One of the reasons what Azure is coming forward as a typical a enterprise level security concept that it can house these different modules. Excuse me. So yeah, but I would definitely give it a try. This is the kind of experimentation we need to be doing. Um, but I have not seen that, but I will now have a seed planted, so to speak, about comparing pictures and families and say, hey, what's the deal? Oh, we got some. I missed one. That's why they taste so good with eggs. That's good. Eggs and tomatoes. Question for results like this history fact on the tomato, do people have a process to vet the data and make sure it's not hallucinating? Um, well, I just missed something here. So my chat is getting a little wonky. I saw some things about hallucinations. Okay, there we go. Back to the. I would be worried if it provides so much information back. Well, yeah, absolutely. But this is nothing. This absolutely. So chat but verify is another thing I always say. I also make the point that just like Forrest Gump says about a box of chocolates, GPT is like a box of chocolate. You never know what you're going to get. Chat but verify. Uh, I have no idea if this 1893 reference is correct, but don't trust it. You need to do your homework at this point. Then again, how many friends do you talk to that when you ask them a question, they'll give you an answer, and that answer definitely you find out later that they hallucinated. So yeah, you can't just sit here and think this is going to 100% correct. You got to check your bias. Just because it's a GPT, just because it's AI and all the goodies and it's a programming thing, does not mean it's going to give you the correct answers. So for coding, how is this different from than GitHub and Copilot? Great question. So the difference is, where is my bring up so I'm going to create a PS file, and this I will do here. I usually would like to save this for something else, but so I'm inside of Visual Studio Code, right? They have now a chat window, right? So I can chat with GitHub Copilot, which is extra special sauce upon, I think the model they're using is GTP4. I think it might even be a newer one that's not been publicly released, but I don't know. And so now I'm inside of a editor, right? So I can do what dir. Did I do? Yeah. So I can get tab completion, IntelliSense, and whatnot. But I also have ChatGPT here, and I can say something like, need a function. Now I'm doing this as a comment. Need a function to get the largest number in. I'm going to leave that misspelled, in an array. Okay. So let's see. Now down here on the bottom right, you can see, I don't know if you see that spinning. That was GPT or Copilot looking for some stuff or doing its interaction with GPT. And you see the ghosted text. That's the suggestion from Copilot GPT, right? Now I'm going to hit tab. Okay. And now, is that correct? I have no idea. It looks good to me. And I will take this another few steps. And I'm going to save this for a demonstration on another live stream on a Friday, an upcoming time. So this is the difference between doing. So if I was inside of ChatGPT on the web, I could do the same thing, right? And then I can copy paste that out of the ChatGPT web, put it in here. This reduces the friction. Right here, I can do a whole bunch of different things. And we're not even barely scratching the surface. The other thing I'd like to bring attention to, again, I notice I spelled incorrectly. I can use poor grammar, which I'm excellent at, and I can use misspellings, and GPT will correct that internally and guess at what I want. And it's absolutely amazing. And there are times when I come down here, you'll see that it'll suggest something else. Need a function to get the smallest number array. So how could it read my mind like that, right? So now it's saying, okay, well, you got the largest, maybe you need a smallest array. And, I could a smallest number function, and I can tab to that. I and there you go. So now I'm off to the races. And then I come back to my other favorite saying, which is, AI is not going to replace you. Someone who knows how to use AI will. So now how many folks have known that you could do this with Copilot, right? And maybe you're sitting back there and saying, I'm not spending 20 bucks for Chat GPT. I'm not going to spend money for Copilot X. This stuff is off the hook, in my opinion. And if you're not using it, there are people that are. I can walk in or make bids on projects and so on and so forth. Or, I can attempt things that maybe would have taken me an entire weekend or a couple of weekends of thinking through and trying. And I can brainstorm and do set this stuff up, and I'm good to go. Let's see. Good thing you didn't enter to get the largest ombre in Japan because it costs more yuan. There you go. See, now I wonder what would happen. See, maybe I'll save this for later. Um, wouldn't I want to say that? Who knows what? Need a function to get the average of an array. So it's already been, I've already was steering the GitHub and GTP into a certain direction. So it's not looking to do that, but that would be fun to do and see what comes up. But the point being is that these tools, again, we're only in October, and the dev conference for OpenAI, their first one ever, is going to happen next month. I think you can't even get to it. You had to almost submit a resume of what you're doing to be allowed to go. I think they're going to stream it, but I thought I saw that link, but I can't find it anymore. This is, you need to learn how to use these tools. This is the, new pneumatic nail gun driver, if I may use that analogy, right? So we used to think that IntelliSense was cool and snippets are great and all the integrations into the ID are amazing. This is next crazy stuff. What is the conference you mentioned? The conference I mentioned is that OpenAI is having their first dev conference. I think it's November 6th. So definitely check that out. You can't, I think it's going to be in the West Coast in the US. I don't think you can get to it, but I think I'm pretty sure I saw that and I tweeted about, or I did an X post on that they were going to stream it. It's going to be some huge announcements. Microsoft's going to make some announcements. They're going to make announcements. I think Nvidia is going to make announcements. But anyway, getting off topic. So there we go. So back to ChatGPT. We talked about tomatoes. There we go. Thank you, Josh. OpenAI announcing the OpenAI Dev Day. Absolutely. Does that mention anything about streaming that conference? I don't think so, but it'd be good to know. So cool. Yeah, so definitely keep your eye open for that. Pay attention for announcements. They'll announce things on their website, on X, and on LinkedIn. And I would definitely recommend they're excellent follows, as well as a lot of the folks that work on the product. You want to check and follow on X. They tweet regularly and some really cool stuff. Developers everywhere will be able to. Thank you very much. So I didn't hallucinate it. So yep, that's going to be. I will be spending my time on the 6th to watch that and get as much cool information as I can. Again, because I have the $20 that I'm paying a month, I will get access to those tools as they become available on the 6th and a few weeks after. The free version will not, Azure will not, Copilot will not. So I like to be an early adopter, and especially in really cool tools. So let's see, we got about 15 minutes left. If people are still interested. So what else was I going to do? Oh yeah, this was the reason this started it all for me. This is beyond boring. I don't want to do that. Okay, cool. So I'd heard about and I saw the TO of Brockman, Greg Brockman of OpenAI. And I think this was sometime last year when they were putting all this out before GPT became multimodal, which is the fact that it can has vision now, so to speak. It has speech capabilities, which is not in the ChatGPT web. It's on the iOS stuff itself. We're not going to go through that today. And he did a really cool little demo. He hand drew a little screen, a little thing saying a simple screen with a couple of brackets and said something like, get to today's joke. And then another bracket said, get tomorrow's joke, dad's joke, or whatever he did. Took a picture of it, sent it up to GPT, and it came back and he asked it to do it as a HTML page with and it came back and had the proper JavaScript and HTML, and it ran, and I think it actually hooked up to a dad joke site. So when I got the vision, I was like, oh, well, let's take that up a notch. And so I drew this screen, right? I'm not much of an artist in this sense. And so I called it Posh-Runner. And as you can see here, I don't know if you can, I have PS command as a label is what my intention was. I put a text box, put a box here, which I meant to be a text box, get service. Then I put a little rectangle here, I called it run, result. And then I try to do a grid of name status and an example of A is running and B is stop. So let's copy this. Let's go back to ChatGPT. And this is cool because we may go off the rails here, but who knows? So I'll paste that in and I'm going to press enter. So it automatically sees the picture. And it looks like a hand-drawn sketch. Yes, you are correct. Of a user interface for a program named PoshRunner. So it already OCR'd it. That's pretty impressive. The UI provides a section to input PowerShell commands, a button to run the command, and a result area to display the status of services. Okay, really? This thing's out of control. Would you like to ask anything about this sketch? No, I don't want to ask anything. Please create, yeah, isn't it pretty amazing? Create a PowerShell script to show a WPF XAML UI. Let's see what we get. It's like a box of chocolates. You never know. Of course, creating a GUI with PowerShell using it is possible. Here's a simple example based on the sketch. Okay, my mind is again blown. Hey, I'm going to draw my website and ask for the code. You got it, Mike. That's exactly correct. Sketch out your pieces if you want to do it in, what's really cool is I can then take this and I can say, hey, try and put this together for in JavaScript, CSS, and HTML. Here comes some really cool parts. So this is pretty interesting to me too, because it knows how to do the add types. I know PowerShell a little bit. So, add type assembly name presentation framework. It's something I always forget to do when I do WPF coding. And I don't know if this will work. It looks like it will. In terms of how it loads up the XML. Notice up top too, it's put it in a string for me. How did it know to put it in a string? And it used a kind of an obscure piece of PowerShell using an XML accelerator. Awesome. Simple example. Everything is simple for it. There you go. And then it comes down and it does the XML and XAML readers. It looks like it's correct. And then it does a tip. This is not a well-known, but it's typical that it uses the windows. So after the window's created, it goes after the text buttons and whatnot. And if you look back up here, it actually named the text box and the button in the list view, and it's going to use a list view. Awesome. And this is also something that's really cool. It knows to use get service from the example. And this is even better than it did last time. Did it do it right? Oh, I think no, today did not do it correct. All 100%. So it uses get service. It just grabs the display name status and then it sorts it and then it plunks it into the items source. Correct. That's how you do data source management inside of a WPF application. And if you don't, so it took the get service as that's all I wanted, which is cool. So let's see if, I don't know if this is going to run. Take a chance. It doesn't look like it's going to do anything damaging. It didn't work. Constructor So it couldn't find the constructor for node reader. Sometimes I did this a couple of times. First time it worked out of the box, which was really cool. And what's cool is I can come back and say, sometimes this works as well. I can say, got the error. And I'm showing you this, if you sit here and you continue to prompt, you get, tells me it's sorry. If you continue to prompt, it'll again try to correct it. If it doesn't get to where this is not about a one and done process, right? You don't, hey, I'm going to just go do this thing and it better get it right or I'm done. You can get this thing 90% of the way. If you're familiar with what you're trying to get done, it can get you there, and then you can get the answers and the results. And you're just that. If I had to build this on my own, it would take me a bunch of minutes. I would have my own, I would probably make spelling errors and whatnot. Let me look at the code again. Let me see what it's doing. Let's see. It's doing a reader parse. I think it's, yeah, so that does look a little better. But what I also wanted, what it did one other time was it didn't hard code get service. Let's say I want to able to do other commands besides. I didn't have to do this the first few times I tried this. Not that I tried it many. Copy all the code, put it in VS Code, display make. Yep, I'm not going to actually try and run this. I think I have, like on a good cooking show, sometimes the souffle doesn't rise, so you already have one that's been cooked, and I have that ready to go. If you want to run arbitrary PowerShell, so what's really cool is when I did this the first time, I didn't have to tell it about that, and it knew how to use invoke expression. So there you go. So it knows how to handle PowerShell and dynamic expressions and whatnot. I didn't try and say convert this into C#, but yep, this is pretty much correct. And it even does some really cool things, checking to see if this is how you check types in PowerShell, if it's an IEnumerable, which is needed for the data collection inside of a WPF application, and result is not string. So and what also I find interesting is by doing this kind of work, sometimes it comes up with solutions. Remember, it's read tons, billions of lines of code in all programming languages. So there are things that it connects the dots on that maybe I haven't seen, that none of us can see, because again, this is a program. It's not alive that we know of. Yeah, so it gets really slick. So if I just pop back over here, in some cases, no one has seen. Absolutely correct. And of course, they're working on new pieces where, in fact, you can actually just feed this a manual on a piece on a programming language. It doesn't even need to see code examples, but you can just give it the manual and it can learn how to program from that. This is one of my earlier attempts. This actually does work, I'm going to say. I'll press F5 in a second, see what happens. And it actually initially came out with the invoke expression. Now, that's the other challenge. Let me press F5, see if it actually works. And sure enough, how cool is that? And I can type in here, let's do a GSV, right? So that's a get service, that's an alias. And we have a running application. Now, I can sit back and I could have worked, tweaked what we were doing in ChatGPT, and I could have gotten to a solution pretty quickly that was working. And then I can make certain decisions rather than having to sit at a blank page or a blank file and try to come up with this all on my own. So yeah, I think it's unbelievably cool. And obviously now, if I did something like a get process, right, it wouldn't do it correctly because it hard coded name and status. But I could go back and either change this manually because I'm 90%, 95% of the way there. And so I could begin tweaking and experimenting in different angles. Or I could go back to GPT and say, hey, do me a favor. Could you don't hard code it? And I'm just going to just let all the varied, property names flow through. Here you miss in the first line part. It has only 2 instead of 3. Could you say a little bit more on that part? Here you miss in the first line. Which line are we talking about? The first one I copy pasted. So the top. I'm not sure. Yeah. So what's interesting too is because we're working with ChatGPT Web, as compared to, let's say, the playground or using the playground in OpenAI or in Azure, we don't really have the ability. We don't have the ability here to affect the temperature, which is the variability of this. So I can do this on a Wednesday in chat. That's the other thing, right? In ChatGPT Web, I could do it on Thursday and get a different answer on Monday. So with my PowerShell AI module, I expose and surface all those parameters so you can actually affect the temperature. So depending on what you're trying to do, if you want to write poetry or you want to brainstorm, you can set a high temperature to 1, and it will randomly go through and be more probability in the results that you get. If you're trying to generate code, you want to dial that down to 0, and you can do that with the PowerShell AI module as well as other SDKs. But you don't really have that here. But again, I can't copy paste an image into Azure where I can do that kind of stuff yet. We can refine its behavior in custom instructions, though. You can have better steerability in the custom instructions, absolutely, but it's also so this is also, it does affect the steerability, but it's not the same thing as affecting the temperature. But yes, it gets you another level of refinement of the behavior. Absolutely. And again, we're only in October, right? And if you look at the playground, so if I go to OpenAI and if I log in and we go to the API, and I go to the playground, right? So here I have the system model, which is the system message, which is basically the custom instructions. And I have the user and I can start asking questions here. Over here on the left, on the right, I also have access to different models. I can go to 4 or I can go to 3.5, 16K, which is a bigger, larger context window. But I can affect the temperature and the top P for probabilities, et cetera. So I have a lot more knobs and dials I can touch. And this is the piece that gets surfaced through the REST API. So again, getting involved with this, you can start out real simple, right? And say, hey, I'm just going to go to ChatGPT. For those of you who remember VBA in Excel, right, there's certain pieces that are turned on that are kind of like the training wheels. ChatGPT is kind of like that. You can start typing things. You can be very minimal, and then you can see the results and start get a sense of what's going on. And then you can then turn those off, and then you can go deeper on the language and on the integration to Excel. And that's the same thing here with ChatGPT. I think that's what they're really going after. You can start with ChatGPT Web. You can start with the free version, get a sense of what this thing's about, pay the money, get some more features, and then you can just, oh, hey, I want to write an SDK, or I just want to wrap the REST APIs the way I can. And just to get some sense of concept. This is a pay as you go. The playground is a pay as you go. So every message that I send, I'm paying for 1,000 tokens, like 0.0003 cents. So then I can go, oh, I can really see how I can refine and I can touch the knobs and dials in a different way. And then that gives me an insight into how I can use other tools that they're providing. So yeah, so this is just basic demonstration of, how can we, what can we do with this and get our imagination going. Do this in C#, and then I'll close it off on that. Yeah, this is so, it just absolutely incredible what this can do, how it can do. And we're only looking at, software programming. This thing can translate languages. There are pieces there's the audio piece that's coming online, which is as impressive as the pictures. It can program in Python, and once you have a working Python program, you can then do things like say, well, convert that Python program to Julia or to R. Okay. And it gets even more interesting. So here, all I did was, let's say I assumed that this was the kind of what I really wanted with the PowerShell piece. And then I just said, do this in C#, right? What does do this in C# mean? Or I could say, build a C# program or convert it from PowerShell to C#. So there's lots of ways that you can communicate through language to get that to work. Now, I don't know if this is going to be a functional program. And that's pretty funny. So check out the PowerShell instance. Did it use, and it loaded the system automation. That's the PowerShell framework. and it does a PowerShell instance, PowerShell create. It does the add script. So this is pretty much, and then it does an invoke, and then it handles the results. So that looks pretty much on the way to doing what I wanted, or building a C# application that could actually call PowerShell under the covers. And notice it says again, add the system automation DLL, which is part of the PowerShell SDK. And now I've got some new insights, right? I can actually take this, drop it into Visual Studio Code or into Visual Studio proper, and try and compile it, and I'm off to the races. And even though it's a simple example, it's a lot to chew on to figure out what's going on. And then I can pivot into different directions. So I haven't tried it with JavaScript yet to see if it actually can figure out third-party libraries that can call PowerShell from a web page, or would it use one of the third-party PowerShell applications that some folks have written, and get it done that way. So it's 2:01. I want to thank you for joining. Great questions, great interaction. Can you ask how to make a PowerShell from tomato? Oh, there you go. Good. I'm glad you liked it, Chrissy. Definite fun. And I'm going to try and do this next Friday and a couple of more. And then I'll be doing a roundup with once the November 6th stuff comes. If you want to see more stuff about Azure and OpenAI and stuff like that, I'll be doing a talk on that in a couple of weeks. You can join through the meetup. Can you ask how to make an exe from PowerShell? Well, there used to be some ways to do it. And yes, if you have access to the free version, I would give it a fire up. I'd do a little greet function and say, hey, that's a PowerShell program, convert it to an executable, or how do I do that? So yeah, imaginations are running. It's awesome. You have me thinking out of the box. Excellent. That's the purpose of why I do this stuff, because it helps me. Our interactions in the chat help me, and I hope it helps you. Yeah, thinking out of the box. This is a whole new world. And don't be left behind. Don't believe all the clickbait and the doomers, deniers, and people that think this is going to be a utopia. It's not. This is the next pneumatic nail gun, and you can show up at the construction site, and if you only got a hammer, they may not hire you. They're going to go to the person who's less capable but can use that pneumatic nail gun and get the job done. Till next time, thanks for joining. You are welcome.